Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to highlights of round 1 of the 2010 AutoGP Formula Sim Racing World Championship. This year the season kicked off in the deserts of Sakhir on the Bahrain International Circuit. Summing up the qualifying session, Bono Huis took pole position, continuing on his top form from the one-off FSR winter race at Monterey. Joining him on the front row was the newcomer to FSR, Ronnie Hannell. Twister Racing driver Malezic took third position with Rasmus Tali in fourth. David Greco put his Ghost Speed car on the third row, just ahead of 3-times world champion Bruno Marquez lining up in sixth. Off the start line it was a clear run down to the first corner, with little change to the top 10. Bono Huis easily made it into turn 1 in first position. The biggest loser was Marquez, who was overcautious in his braking and dropped 5 positions. While the front-runners continued in a very well-behaved fashion into turn 3, it didn't take long for the sparks to fly further behind, with David Dominguez tripping over the front of Tom Ely's wing and rolling his Roaldo racing car. Canapino's lag was no doubt causing some problems in the midfield, but it was Morris who would make the next mistake, braking very late in an over-ambitious attempt to pass Patrick de Witt. He slammed into the side of Poniatowski, who was lucky to be able to drive away. While the front-runners, Huis, Hannell, Tali and Malezic, were running away with the race, it was the duel between Pulmalainen and de Witt that had the spectators on the edge of their seats. The battle for 9th position had both drivers swapping positions, displaying some very clean racing. It wasn't long before Poniatowski became involved too, and de Witt found himself surrounded by SB Motorsports cars. Mikkönen's day soon got worse. Chasing down Poniatowski and Pulmalainen, he locked up badly braking into the final corner, sliding right into Poniatowski. Mikkönen's car was clearly damaged, but it was Poniatowski who came off second best, losing his front wing and having to pit immediately. Huis was being kept very honest by Hannell, who remained less than a second behind him during the entire first stint. While his pit stop was problem-free, he left the pit lane only to be put in the middle of the three-way battle for 9th. Desperate to avoid being held up, Huis made short work of Pulmalainen when the Finn made a small mistake into turn 11. Despite Hannell leaving the pits and emerging in relatively clear air, Huis had somehow managed to add a further 4 seconds to his lead. There was no rest for the continuing battle between de Witt and Pulmalainen, with the pair back to fighting as soon as the pit stops were over. While de Witt initially managed to take back his position from Pulmalainen, his faster-than-speed car could not hold off the inevitable, and Pulmalainen was soon back in front of the Dutchman. Back at the front, and as Huis gradually pulled away, the second-place Hannell had started worrying more about what was in his mirrors. Malezic's Twister racing machine had made a late stop and was on considerably fresher tyres. Waiting for just the right time to make his move, Malezic suddenly made a very brave pass into turn 8, catching Hannell by surprise and moving into second place. With the tables turned, Malezic would now have to defend his position from constant attacks by Hannell, who was not ready to give up the fight. It would ultimately go wrong for Hannell, spinning out after attempting to pass and then stalling his engine. A frustrating end to a great drive which fell just a mere 3 laps short of the checkered flag and a sure podium position. Meanwhile, Greco seemed to find a little bit more pace in his second stint, doing a better job of handling the lighter fuel than Helston, who had passed him earlier in the race. He hunted down and passed Helston into turn 1. Things would go from bad to worse for Helston. He was now being chased down by a very determined Pulmalainen. At the start of the second to last lap, Pulmalainen was close enough to try and pass. Helston made a mistake when he took the defensive line into turn 11 and watched hopelessly as Pulmalainen drove around and passed him on the outside. With a lead of over 10 seconds, Bono Huis crossed the finish line to take the first win of the 2010 season. Domagoj Malezic brought his Twister racing car home for second, and rounding up the podium was Rasmus Tali, who, despite having a seemingly uneventful race, came under a lot of pressure from Marquez towards the end. Marquez himself finished in 4th, after managing to chase down and pass Helston for the second time during the race. David Greco held on for 5th, and Pulmalainen finished an impressive 6th. So Bono Huis takes the full 25 points, a perfect start to the season. Malezic receives 18, and Rasmus Tali 15. Marquez will be happy to take away 12 points, but as one of the favourites to take the championship, he already has a 13-point deficit to first place. Despite not taking the win, Twister Racing will lead the Constructors' Championship. Precision are not far behind with 25, and Leon Cavallo, a branch of Precision Motorsports, are running third with 15 points. The next round will take place on the streets of Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix. Be sure to tune in on the 21st of March at 6 PM GMT for the multi-BC broadcast. We hope you've enjoyed this review. I am Jack Nichols, and we'll see you on the streets of Melbourne.